And yeah, I actually had some of the speakers at Harvard said, hey, we should do simulcast in the future. Sounds good. We got way more speakers than we expected, very the last week. So it's suddenly like, oh, yeah, unfortunately, some things we did not consider beforehand. And now it's, I wish we had thought of it because I'm sure if we had thought of it, we would have figured out how to prepare it. But the good thing is we have some iPhone recordings, and also here we have Zoom broadcast to YouTube. So at the least we'll be able to say, all right, everyone, there is some way to rewatch the talks. And then next year, we'll make sure it's set up even better, maybe even for the Texas one, because Ben, I'm sure you and Dan and John and all the others, I'm sure you all know a lot of good resources, a lot of good people we can work with. So at the least for next year, Live Ivy Plus will definitely have it. But I would say for the Texas one, we'll probably be able to get it. So okay. Let me just pull up my questions real quick so I can refer to them briefly if I need to. All right. Okay. Let's get started. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is the America's AI ML panel for Live AI Ivy Plus 2025. Some of you may have already watched a previous panel, very similar. That was for the international audience, in that, the time zones worked in their favor. This time it works in the America's favor. And one reason why we did that is we want to make sure that our affiliate campus, Universal AI University, was going to be able to watch some stuff on their time zone. And we are very honored to welcome their founding vice chancellor, Dr. Simon Mack. So I guess, Dr. Mack, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, sure. Scotty, thank you so much for inviting me and also my university out here in Mumbai to participate. And so I'm part of something called Universal AI University. We're the first 100% AI university in India. And I left Dallas, Texas, and my role at Southern Methodist University 6 months and 5 days ago to come out to India to help start up this new university. My background is actually in entrepreneurship. And before SMU, I was in the Bay Area working on startups and was part of the blockchain boom. And then before that, I was part of the dot-com boom. And then before that, I was part of the client server boom, if you guys remember all of that. And so I view AI through the lens of these major tech trends. And so when I talk about AI, I bring that background into it. And so I hope to be able to share some of that with you. And so again, Scotty, thank you for being here. And it is 2:39 a.m. in Mumbai.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier for the rest of us. If we go by time zone, we have Johnny, who Johnny, why don't you tell everyone what time zone you're in and what time it is?
Yeah, actually, everyone can tell by my background. I'm actually located in Bay Area right now, so it's 1 p.m. It's much easier for me compared to Dr. Mark. So, yeah, hello everyone. I'm super honored to be here. I'm Gianni, and currently I'm a senior software engineer with a background in AI and machine learning, and I currently work for Meta. Before that, I also stay in Bay Area and also get my master degree in computer science at Stanford. So I have been in this AI and machine learning area for several years. And previously, I also worked for TikTok. So also one thing I want to mention specifically, I also been involved in the hackathon community as a judge, and also probably offering some mentorship to the team working on AI projects. That's part of my personal interest. I really love working with talented people. And yeah, very nice, very excited to be here and looking forward to discuss with all you guys here.
All right, thank you, Johnny. And some people who are not aware, Johnny actually found us, reached out and said, hey, I'd love to help out, be a judge. And then I was looking at her resume and thought, maybe she'd be interested in being a speaker too. So, appreciate Johnny reaching out to, well, finding us and then reaching out to us, because, we're definitely very fortunate to have you. We didn't know you existed, and we're glad we know now. So, yes, Pacific time zone. Next up is Mountain time zone. Brad. Would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Brad Moss, Mountain Time Zone, so it is 2 o'clock here, 2:10. Again, Dr. Mack, sorry. Um, but my background is actually I built a lot of video games in my early career, over 60 video games for big EA, Microsoft, all those guys. And then I went to Amazon and I ran the third-party selling marketplace platform called Seller Central that everyone sells on. So essentially, I went to big tech and understood the big tech with a lot of big tech systems that was doing tons of money, which Amazon does, which we did there. And then I broke out and I had several startups that I've bought or I've built and sold, and then bought some and sold some. So I've been a lot in this entrepreneurial space as well, and got fascinated with AI about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago. Before the big wave started coming, I discovered GPT 2.5, and I thought, oh, this is something special here of what's coming. So been really deep in it for the last 3.5 years, built over 1,000 different agents at this point. And for businesses though. So a lot of the business application of AI is really what I'm focused on. So super happy to be here with such amazing other panelists.
All right, yeah. Brad, thank you for joining us. Just so others know, Miriam, who is the creative director behind a lot of the stuff that you see at Live AI, she's friends with Brad and suggested him to us, and we thought, all right, that would be great. Get some people like Brad on. Definitely appreciate you being here. And the next time zone is Central Time Zone, represented by Ben. So Ben, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
I've been body, done a number of things, everything from being a film producer, a school teacher, an advisor to Governor Abbott, an advisor to the lieutenant governor. Had a number of startups which I sold, created all the way from an NFT blockchain t-shirt startup to a video version of Yelp. And then went off to be a couple years ago, got into AI through the Dallas Regional Chamber here as the city keeps growing, going and meeting a number of people in C-suites and sort of advising them on AI, and was the resident expert. And then later started the Texas AI Association because, like Brad, I saw a major opportunity with businesses needing help and sort of getting the right AI solutions. And so happy to be on the panel with everyone. Dr. Mack, I actually, your reputation precedes yourself. A number of people are like, hey, I got to meet Dr. Mack. And Jenna, I got to sit on a call yesterday, which was great. She has a number of great insights, and it's nice to be there, but also with meeting Brad as well. So I'm happy to be on with everyone else.
All right, thank you. And yeah, since I'm at Duke, I am Eastern time zones 4:14 for me. And we are sad to say that since I am at Duke right now, Harvard is the only time zone and a live AI campus that's not represented here. But I'll be there tomorrow for the judging part. So, just want to make sure everyone knows, we're doing our best to include everyone. So yeah, we have a great panel here. We can go ahead and jump into some of the questions we have. And one main thing we do want to talk about, which, I'm sure everyone's always wondering about this and that. So what hurdles, or sorry, not what hurdles, but when you're looking at AI throughout your career, and not necessarily just in your career, how have you seen AI evolve? What kind of hurdles have you seen AI overcome as a result of that?
Anyone in particular, or should we just
Yeah, oh yeah, just go
Yeah,
for
should we
it.
just
fire
go?
off?
Just
Yeah.
dive in.
Well, okay. Let me give an interesting perspective from my video game. Like the first third of my career was in video games. And one fascinating things about video games is that I've probably done more innovative stuff in building video games than any other part of my career. Because by definition, you almost have to do things that are innovative. Like we did stuff for Disney Imagineering and their theme parks, like and they came to us because we were a game development company and we did innovative stuff. But so I guess I just say that because we've been in AI, not generative AI, but doing AI logics to make the worlds more interesting, characters more interesting, player logics. We're doing procedurally generated content. And I've been doing it since 2008. And I'm not necessarily a software engineer, actually, not by trade, but I've just been deep in it. And it's been fascinating to see what generative AI has done, and what the transformer models did that Google came out with, and how that's kind of revolutionized a lot of what we're doing. But um, I've loved what the concept of it, but the way it's all of a sudden exploded with the with the new generative AI, I think is incredible. And I have plenty more to say. I don't want to take up too much time, but the what you can do with the logic layer in software now by just replacing it with AI is it basically speeds up all software and all development, which is kind of where we are right now, which is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, I could jump in. I think Brad has also mentioned a lot of like traditional AI and Gen AI waves. And for me, my life was more like a from a student to a software engineer. So I still remember when I was in college, when I was doing my master, people were talking about neural network and ImageNet, something like that, like very traditional AI models. And we can train these models on several like GPUs within our labs experiment like environment. But after I graduated, after I become a software engineer, there's definitely a new wave of generative AI like GPT, like Cloud, and now DeepSeek came onto the stage. So I can see there's a big hurdle for the data size and computational cost. It's actually increasing like enormously with the new wave of AI. So when we think about the hurdles of the AIs, yeah, it's I would say the scalability and the computational cost would be a potential big hurdles of the future or even currently, because training those kind of large scale AI models requires a lot of GPU and computational resources, and only big institutions could have the power to do so. And I think over time, there are gonna be a lot of like useful optimizations, including model architectures, including GPU hardware architectures, which could help reduce this kind of hurdles.
All right. Scotty, if I can jump in.
Yeah.
So, when I think about AI, I didn't even realize I was studying AI. So when I was a freshman at MIT, the first programming course they taught us was in Lisp, LISP. And little did I know that was actually the power of Lisp was in its recursive nature, that how easy it was. And the reason why you want this recursion is to simulate artificial intelligence, right? And so to double down on Brad's point, AI has been around for a long time. A lot of people have been using AI, but nowadays we call it applied AI, right? And the new AI is the generative AI. And what has really sparked that movement is the CPU power. And so the ability to do a lot more of the algorithmic processing. Now, that brings me to where I am today. So I started off as a freshman in college. I'll jump right to where I am today. One of the challenges that we have in India is we lack CPUs. It's a very interesting dynamic here. AI has become a government national initiative, but we don't have enough power. We don't have enough GPUs. And so Jensen Huang from NVIDIA was actually in Mumbai about a month and a half ago, and I was at a conference with him, and he's talking about doing deals with the India to help build up the AI infrastructure. So clearly that has to be there, unless you're DeepSeek, and the DeepSeek says I don't need all these NVIDIA processors. We can do things a different way, and we can use sort of small learning models instead of large learning model methodology. And so it's a very, very interesting time in AI, but I view it from the lens of an entrepreneur. And so to me, that's equally as interesting.
And just to sort of piggyback on some of those challenges, I'll kind of go in a little bit different direction in the sense that, one of the things that you kind of face in sort of digital transformation when you go into companies and you go into verticals within those companies is the fear of losing their job. And I think a big thing that's being missed in this whole conversation about AI is what are you going to do about everyone that's going to lose their job? Because we know that the majority of these jobs that are in these corporations can be automated out. And where do we find a way to retrain these people and then actually find the value that they can bring to an organization? you're constantly seeing companies across the United States lay off hundreds and thousands of people every single day, right? And they're going to continue to do this. This is not going to stop. And then, the people that are remaining at those companies are going to get the money that's going to come because they're there to actually implement AI within those organizations. China just is at Meta, right? And so they just laid off a bunch of people, and executives got the bonuses. And so that's going to continue to happen across the entire United States, and I think a lot of corporate America. And so what we really need to do is consider the human element and consider what's happening to those people that are losing their jobs and find the pipelines. Dr. Max was at SMU. SMU has 3 entrepreneurship centers right now. I'm working very closely with SMU. I'm a grad and of undergrad and law school. And so there's a need to retool people and to get people into different pipelines and to start new companies, I think, to really meet the need of the next workforce. So I think while there's a lot of dread on people that are in companies that don't want to learn about AI and don't want to adapt, I think on the other side of it, there's a lot of optimism in terms of what the potential of AI is for everybody.
If I can add to that real quick. So here in India, there's a big fear of AI. It's really ironic. It's sort of a bimodal emotions where you have the government saying, this is our mandate, and everybody else is, but that'll take away our jobs. And what we're realizing is that before me, the start of computers, right? When computers were invented, all these people who were doing things manually lost their jobs, right? But guess what? The computer industry created something called IT outsourcing. And IT outsourcing literally put India on the map. I mean, India now is where it is because of IT outsourcing. And when I explain that to people here in India, they're like, oh yeah, we benefited from this tech evolution that, yes, there, in entrepreneurship, we call it creative destruction, that all these jobs would disappear. But man, 10 times more jobs were created around the world as a result of that. However, to Ben's point, what do we do with the ones who are displaced? And that does take a little bit more thoughtfulness.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where we look at, say, for example, there's also the Industrial Revolution. There was a lag between the jobs being lost, being destroyed, being made obsolete. And there's actually 2 things I want to mention. One is the industry evolving to survive. So for example, rather than I now can mass produce shoes. So I don't need you to make shoes anymore. Okay, that's fine. You become a little bit more artistic. You tailor shoes for specific people, right? You make clothes that fit people. You're a tailor rather than I make clothes in general. It's now, I have to reach a higher level. The usual thing we see is that instead I used to drive a horse and buggy, and now I have to retrain to drive a train. That's the Industrial Revolution. And I think same thing, yeah, the digital revolution, there's going to be people saying, I used to write emails for you. I used to write things, but now ChatGPT has taken that away from you. DeepSeek can take that away from you. Okay, so how does the writing industry stay alive? Well, one thing is to become artistic, to be such a good writer that people still want your services because you write at a level beyond what AI can do. And this alludes to what Ben mentioned last night. And then, of course, there's the other side of, well, Scotty, I drive Uber, and Uber, what if I can't drive Uber anymore? Well, you can still become a personal chauffeur for higher class clients, or you can drive buses, or maybe you go and drive a maglev. But there's going to be some kind of retooling. Now, obviously, the societal challenge is how do we retool people, enough of them and fast enough at a high enough quality to avoid too many disruptions at societal level. But, of course, that's probably a little bit beyond the scope of this talk. But that is I do think those are not exactly challenges that AI itself struggles to overcome, but for society to trust it and adopt it and realize, oh, AI is just another tool like my car or a hammer or a lawnmower. Those are some challenges associated with AI. And so I think, it's definitely worth discussing. Maybe if any of you feel like there's challenges related to that, on top of the challenges that AI itself faces, I guess if you want to throw in something that you see.
Well, I wanted to, maybe this is take it a step up and actually ask the group their thoughts. So having observed this and been super deep in this, let me explain this real quickly, so I can level set it. I feel like software is three things. You have the data layer, you have the logic layer, and then the UI layer, and that's software. And the data layer is not really changing, but the logic layer is now gone. Like you can do the same logic it used to take months or a year to kind of build that logic layer in general. I'm just talking high level. But now you can do it instantly. You can just type in a prompt and all of a sudden it spits out logic. And so I was in a group with a bunch of VCs a couple of months ago, and someone mentioned as they're talking about something, they said, hey, we want to do this because building product is expensive. So you want to do this first. And the thought dawned on me, wait, like I think this AI thing is now product is going to no longer be expensive to build. And that is actually I think what's really happening is that product has traditionally been expensive for the last 30, 40 years to build a product from a software perspective because of the logic layers, and you mix the logic with the UI layer and it connects with the databases. But now if AI is taking care of most of that like really, really quickly, what does that mean if it doesn't take a long time to build a software anymore? And I think that starts hitting into all these economic components here of, well, maybe people's jobs are spinning up, whatever small version or vertical of a software really fast. And maybe that's their job. And it's not the traditional larger tech team all underneath one company, because now these softwares can be spun up so quickly. And that shifts a lot of our focus of how we're spending our money and where the value is in the money. And I think that's something that's really happening and trickling down. That's why people are saying SaaS is dead. Microsoft, CEO said SaaS. All these people are saying that. I think that's really why. And what is the economic impact there? Is actually that's the shift of jobs. The way I'm seeing it. And I would love thoughts around all that. Maybe you guys are seeing similar things.
Yeah, I could jump in from a software engineer perspective. I do agree on your opinions. I feel like the logic unit in between was previously built by a bunch of human software engineers, which might take several months on that. And with this transition, actually the job security or the job market for software engineer is decreasing. That's what's definitely happening right now. Like based on my experience and my friends' experience at the Bay Area, I would say that this is true, and I do agree on this. But one thing we need to figure out as the cost of building a product is tremendously decreased with the powerful AI tools, we can actually replace the human software engineer with some powerful AI tool. That means everyone can build their applications in a very quick and fast way. So everyone could create a product, but the problem is what kind of product they want to create. And do they have enough creativity to create a success product on top of that? So I feel like the thing is switching from a software engineer skill to a more creative people, a product mindset for people in this area.
Very good. And what I will add is that Sam Altman famously stated maybe 2 or 3 months ago that he believes that the first solo entrepreneur billionaire will happen because they're using AI agents to do all their work, right? Not only are they using AI agents to develop the software, but to distribute it, to test it, distribute it, service it, all these different things. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting perspective. And Jenny, that's interesting what you just said, because as soon as you said that, of course, I'm thinking, the software engineers need to think like entrepreneurs, right? And may the best application win. Now there's going to be 100 applications built to solve this one problem. Now the whole dynamics of being a skilled entrepreneur is at the next level.
Yeah, and that's why for anyone who's looked through our evaluation guidelines, our mindset behind creating hackathons a certain way is to say, look, it's okay if your best skill is coding, you're not good at pitching. We're simply saying, at the least with our evaluation guidelines or through workshops we've done, or, not even us, through anyone else, we just want to say the way we think it has to evolve. We want you to think a little bit more beyond just the usual, here's my tech mindset, or, you're not just a tech person. You're not just a coder. You're not just this and this. we all say we're this and that, but in the end, we're humans. We can adapt, and some people are going to adapt to certain things faster than others. That's just how we are. But in the end, you can definitely retrain yourself. And I mean, I started off pre-med and pre-law, thinking maybe I might do one of them. I went into finance, switched over to tech, and Dr. Mack has seen, Dr. Mack, I think you've seen me wear 17 different hats in the past 8 years, and half the time I'm not even sure I didn't even know I had that hat on. And it's just one of those things where it's just like, oh, right, some things are harder for me to learn, but in general, there's a lot of ways for us to evolve ourselves. And I think it just kind of comes down to, you know, like Sam Altman said, if you have the right tools, and these are not his exact words, but the concept he said is basically if you have the right tools, yeah, you can do all this on your own. And kind of going back to what you said about DeepSeek earlier, it's interesting. I thought about
Sam Altman said if you have the right ChatGPT tools.
yeah. And
of course he did.
Yeah. And I feel like we say a lot, necessity is the mother of inventions, but I feel like a lot of people think that means an invented thing, but I think what the phrase is really trying to get at is necessity is the mother of inventiveness, being creative. And Dr. Mack, you mentioned this. We've also seen this. I guess maybe a generation ago, we saw this with China, going from you don't have telephones, you don't have carpets, you don't have straws, things that I guess that's like 1950s America invented that. And suddenly China had cell phones, right? We saw growing up visiting Taipei, I saw something similar. I think Korea has something like that, the four tigers of Asia. And now this generation we're seeing with India, they've skipped from, yeah, we don't have carpets and drinking straws and stuff, but here's a few billionaires coming from tech. And wait, what? Wait, how did that happen? And I think that's and again, to the DeepSeek part, necessity is the mother of inventiveness, because where China did not have the computing power, they've developed their own things. Now, India, obviously, DeepSeek come from China. There's a bit of a geopolitical kind of a hitch for them, but at the least, conceptually, the idea is that conceptually we could be seeing more things being developed on the ground, grassroots level. And so theoretically, yeah, we might see a little bit of that inventiveness lead to even more inventiveness and inventions if we're talking kind of the mindset versus the physical manifestation. So, I would love to kind of jump in and see, for all of you, what you do right now, how has DeepSeek impacted what you're doing? Not necessarily that it's positive or it's negative, maybe it just changed the way you think, or maybe the way your industry or your locality, your community, just, obviously it came out very suddenly, but I'm sure there was definitely at least a little bit of what is this? So, what are some things that kind of ran through your mind at that time?
Well, really, I think one of the big things was it's the cost proposition that comes with DeepSeek. You're now able to perform the same things that you could do on GPT at a lot cheaper price points. I think the models that the American sort of tech scene was coming up with big data centers and big energy, you really see how the cog works. I mean, I worked in policy for a number of years, and when they have an opportunity to go spend the government's money, they will take advantage of that. And so we obviously saw that with Stargate. There wasn't a lot of foresight in it. They're looking at what's right in front of their face, and they're not looking far in the future at all. And when DeepSeek came, it disrupted that mindset and that idea. Now, I don't think that's going to massively change the purchases of NVIDIA chips or the building of data centers or anything that we are dealing with in energy, but it's reassessing how much do you have to invest in it. I think there needs to be a step back on listening to the tech oligarchs, because everyone listens to them, and it's just like any other industry. I've seen it in law. I've seen it with corporate CEOs. They go listen to the consultants, they go listen to the lobbyists, and they all run with it. They're not as smart as you think they are. They're listening to advisors and other people that are pushing a whole group of them in the same direction. And then they all just run after that. I mean, you're seeing that with Meta, right? Meta is now doing humanoid robots because they can. I mean, they have the resources to do it. They see that everyone's running in the industry. Meta might as well go in there too. They have the smart people. They're like Jenna that's working there. So when you have that type of talent pool, you could do a lot of things. And why not get in those industries where there's going to be a robot for every single person not that far along? I had a chance to listen to the CEO of Apptronic, Jeff Karlandis, said the same thing. I mean, this in Austin, it's a little startup, just raised 350 million Series A round. And you kind of look at what all these futurists are saying. And, again, there's an advantage to them, right? Because they're going to be selling their robots and making all the money off of it. But it also creates sort of that competition and whatnot. So I think that's a big thing to look at the price points and how much we really are going to need in the future when we talk about how we're going to compete on AI and everything else.
Yeah, as you mentioned Meta, first a disclaimer, I work for Meta, but I didn't work on Llama. So I'm not part of generative AI department at Meta, so I could basically talk something from my perspective. So as everybody know, actually Llama was the previous open source big models, which is like had very good performance. But after DeepSeek came onto the stage, it actually beats Llama. But one thing I've noticed is that DeepSeek is also an open source model, and I was very happy to see such kind of shifting from open source model is getting more powerful over the time. And yeah, DeepSeek is actually built on top of Llama, so I would say it's a success of the open source community in shifting from those GPT cloud and those closed source models to the open source community. I would say DeepSeek, the success of DeepSeek is definitely a big success of the whole open source community because people are building on top of each other and evaluation together. And I think in the future, maybe more and more company will be pushed into this trend and explore open source alternatives. And as Ben mentioned, the cost and the efficiency is also a big success of DeepSeek. So maybe those big companies were also pushing to pursue something like optimized model efficiency and improve accessibility of these models.
Yeah, let me just chime in two thoughts on my side. So for me, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was a big deal, but like just in my perspective, it was like DeepSeek came out, everything's getting cheaper. Awesome. It's something that we were predicting anyway. I mean, everyone keeps lowering their prices, and it comes out. It's to be expected. I think it's amazing it came out of where it did. A non-US focused company. I guess Anthropic has done a really good job with their models too, but a totally different field model coming out with such a powerful model, or country coming out with such a powerful model. So for me, it was like, great, it's getting cheaper, and that's what we should all assume. It's going to get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as these models are coming out, so you can use them more and more. To me, the most interesting thing actually is getting these models. They say smarter. I don't know if like they're going to be getting smarter, but in their current architecture, I don't know how smart the current model can get. Because really, what's going on is people, they do the zero shot prompting where it's like, hey, I asked something and I expect a big long result from it. Right, their output context window is still only so big. You can't write a book with just a one shot in a model. You have to have some kind of iteration on it. And the O1 has been really interesting, that approach. And then the O3 from OpenAI and DeepSeek has their own, right? The R1, where the model basically the information goes to the model, and then it has like multiple steps. It's checking itself over and over and over again to try and get smarter and smarter. And I think that's really interesting. I think real practical application inside of a business, which is where I sit, even that is very limiting for a business because I don't know what I'm going to get. I'm dealing with customers who need 99+% accuracy on documentation of whatever they're generating. And like, still, you're not getting that. You're getting 80-90% with some of those models, and you have to actually structure them in a different way. And so I'm actually much more interested in how are people structuring their AI systems and models? And then maybe that's what Dr. Mack is doing a lot of teaching around, is how do you structure these multi-stepped scenarios where you're doing, 10-step prompting, which is, you might talk to multiple agents talking to each other all at once to get exactly what you need in the outcome. That's actually a fascinating part of this whole world. And I guess the best part of DeepSeek is that it just makes it cheaper. So I could do 20 iterations and check. We have AI checking itself all the time, right? So I could now check itself 5 times instead of 1 or 2 times for the same cost, or actually for cheaper, the way DeepSeek is. But that's where I'm super fascinated right now with kind of the current state of where things are.
Well, I'll add what's going on in India relative to DeepSeek, and what's going on in India is right now there are no models that have been no sort of influential models that have come out of India. And so the government has come out and says, we need to create our own models coming out of India. And the advent of DeepSeek has really lit a fire in the government. And so therefore, the first government university 100% focus on AI has also now been created, ironically, not too far from Mumbai. So India again is being pushed as a result of DeepSeek. So that's sort of at a high business and political level. At a more tactical level, again, just like Brad, I saw it coming. I saw this basically mimics what happened during the distributed computing movement, where everything went off the mainframe, then it went to the mini computer, and then it went to PCs and client server. And the whole purpose was to reduce costs, right? And from a business perspective, to take out the monopoly of IBM. And so very, very similar patterns. And we all knew there's no way you could just continue to build models based on, an infinite amount of GPUs from a company called NVIDIA, right? And so we knew that was not going to be sustainable. And so somebody was going to figure that out. Like you said, no one's thought it would come out of this part of the world. Everybody thought probably come out of the US, but it came out of this part of the world. So for us on this side of the world, it's actually pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think going back to why certain places invent things or become inventive, I think there's definitely a lot of different ways. It's not necessarily that when you say necessity is the mother of all inventions or inventiveness, it's not to say, oh, the US can't invent because there's no necessity. I think it's sometimes you feel the rush of competition, the thrill of competition. And these are some things that lead to feeling like there's a necessity. Sometimes I'll joke about, oh man, I'm so hungry. I'm a one-person famine. Clearly not true, but at least for me personally, I need to get some food. I've been going out around doing stuff. So I'm going to figure out how to get that food. Not the same as, oh, okay, I'm going to have to figure out how to create agriculture for our whole society. But then that's why countries like the US can say we have abundance and we're still going to go and invent and all that. And I think in China, there are some examples like we have the International Space Station. Just about everyone in the world got involved, and China was very specifically excluded. So China said, fine, we'll build our own. And it was like, wait, what? And then in India's case, I think it's a little bit of the competition, but not kind of the American type of we want to succeed as entrepreneurs, but more of, oh, our country, this land used to have these things going on, and we've reached a point where we can start trying to compete again. And wait, DeepSeek? Okay, we better light a fire. But then at the same time, there's enough resources for some Indians to say, okay, I really want to go and compete. I want to join the market in Mumbai, or you know what? I want to be based in Mumbai and compete against, here's Brad with enhanced AI, or maybe I'm trying to get into school. Like Johnny went to Tsinghua and then Stanford, maybe someone saying, oh yeah, Ben, yeah, I met him. Okay. Apparently his cousin is in my neighborhood. I heard what Ben's doing in Dallas. So I'm going to try to do that here, and not necessarily trying to go head to head with people, but I think, everyone comes up with different reasons and different ways to motivate themselves, and kind of that leads to that feeling of necessity. It might be an internal call to do something. It might just be actual, life or death situations. But in the end, it comes up as some way of saying, I need to make this happen. So I think, obviously, Dr. Mack, like you said, all this stuff going on in India, yeah, I think we'll probably see some stuff, because you do need some resources behind that feeling of necessity. And now that, based on what you're saying, it's starting to happen, yeah, we'll probably see something coming out of India. I guess I don't know enough to predict when or what it looks like, but, if we're talking about the, AI's impact on the future of tech, then yeah, I would say, I don't know if I would say the Industrial Revolution elevated any countries, but I could see the tech revolution, digital revolution, AI revolution, whatever sub-revolution or revolution you want to call it. I can see how in this case, we might actually see a country like India move very quickly to the front of the line. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So one more question before we go to maybe a quick Q&A. For the future of tech, all the impact that we've seen for AI and all that, what would you say, any of you, what would you say are some of the most profound upcoming evolutions that you see or expect to see?
I think the
Someone
big
else?
one is going to be that mix of robotics with AI. When you start to see humanoid robots watch a person, then learn, and then do the exact same thing, and that wouldn't have been able to if you didn't have both the hardware and software to do that. And so we have that now. And as they keep training these robots and models, I think you're only going to see that get more real in terms of doing manual labor, skilled labor. And then, obviously we're already doing that with, you just saw Google and all them saying they're releasing PhDs that can do the job of, 100 researchers, right? And so you have a whole research team now. And so you're going to have to rethink academia, I think, in a lot of ways. Academia has to evolve in it, but I think where you're going to see a lot of the big acceleration in the next few years. The LLM models are just going to keep getting better, but I think when you mix that with robotics, that's going to be the next one. And then obviously quant. I think when you start to interface different technologies like blockchain and quant computing on top of AI, you're going to hit into a different realm of sort of being able to do different things that humans never thought possible, right? So the second they opened that research thing with Google, they were able to solve a research question that had been a question for 10, 15 years, and they did it in 2 days. And so that type of acceleration is going to start to happen, I think, in scale.
Scotty, when I think about this question about the future, I think about an episode from the 1969 Star Trek series. And if you go back to 1969, watch the original Star Trek series, that there was an episode where this world, there's this world, right? And it's just made of brains. It's just a bunch of brains. And then everybody else are robots that does everything. And of course, Captain Kirk lands on this airplane into this planet and has no idea that he's interacting with robots. And then eventually he figures out he's actually interacting with robots, goes behind the caves and sees a bunch of brains lying around. And so I always think back to that when I think about how far you can go in terms of, science fiction, but then maybe it's not so much science fiction.
Yeah, it sounds kind of like the forerunner for the Matrix. Rather than just brains, we have the humans just hooked up to the Matrix. And I feel like I've seen something like that kind of in the Star Wars extended universe. There was some, Emperor Palpatine had a lab where he had multiple brains for himself, and Luke discovers, oh, Emperor Palpatine was never actually killed. Obviously, this wasn't in the movie, so there's a little bit more creativity in how loose or how tight the rules of the universe was. But yeah, it reminds me of that. But I guess Dr. Mack, in that episode, I guess it sounds like there's a little bit of trying to kind of combine all that brain power literally together, right? So it sounds like instead of
unlike that, and so unlike the Matrix, which was a mental thing, this was like real robots that Captain Kirk had to fight and all that kind of stuff. But I will say, predicting technology trends is really hard. I don't think there have been anybody who's been able to really predict anything, very precisely. And so it's a lot of fun for us to do these kind of discussions.
Yeah.
Let me dovetail someone that we mentioned previously is like, what is AI not good at? And AI has no memory. Like LLMs have zero memory in them. And I actually typically say that AI is the right brain of technology. This generative AI is the right brain of technology when we've been dealing with the left brain of technology for the last 40 years. So it's very exact, precise, detailed, like a database, right? That's the technology we've been dealing with. Right now, it's this brand new technology that's generative, it's creative, it's based on patterns and predicting patterns. And it's almost, I call it the right brain of technology. But one of the problems, the limits that we have is, everyone's talking about hallucinations. It's really just because AI is based on trillions of patterns. It doesn't know anything. It just knows patterns. And so where we are, and I'm not thinking as far ahead as Dr. Macker has been, but I think over the next 2 or 3 years, actually, what we're going to be facing is the corpus callosum, the thing that connects the right and the left side of the brain. because we don't have the right kind of data getting into AI at the right time, or into the LLMs at the right time. And that pass through of data, to make it exactly relevant and contextual, like the human brain does. And so you can actually give the right kind of output. That's actually a huge piece that I totally underreported, but that's a huge thing that we're missing in AI right now. There's no memory. Again, LLMs have zero memory. So a chat log, it takes what you've said before and it loads it right back in, everything, the whole log every time. And most people don't even understand that. But if AI actually has memory, which there's some folks that are kind of working on that, or the connection between these huge databases we have and an LLM, that's actually a super exciting. That's where actually it unlocks way more than where we actually are right now. Like right now, I think there's a lot of science fiction of what it can do, but you need memory. This huge data sets that we have, the context window of AI is only so big, right? You can't shove everything in it. And then you can't train a model on certain specific things, and you're training, millions of models to do certain different things. It's just too much. And so it's actually getting the right contextual information from the left side of the brain into the right side of the brain that I think is actually the next evolution of the next big, huge leaps that we're going to be taking over probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years is what I see. And that might be, sorry, I'm like getting like a little too deep into the tech and nerdy, but I actually think it's going to be, it's a very big deal. And Google just released a month ago a new transformer model, Transformer 2, which has concepts of long-term memory and then forgetfulness, actually, like the human brain. It actually forgets things it doesn't like. And so that's the first introduction of a type of memory into an LLM. But anyway, that's my prediction, is like as the big thing in the next probably 2 years. It'll probably take us 2 or 3 years of hammering that out. So
That makes me think about,
Yeah,
oh, sorry, go ahead, Johnny.
go ahead. I just want to say I'm really agree on the wonderful world with the powerful AI we could arrive in the future. And just one thing add on top of that, before we actually achieve such kind of powerful AI-based robotics in such wonderful world, there's one thing very important is ethic and trust and safety. Before we actually do that, we might need to consider, well, how we want to make the AI reliable safety before it actually have all the access to our left brain, to the enormous data we have accumulated as human being. So before that, we also want to consider how we make sure the AI does do some safe things instead of doing some risky and irresponsible things. Yeah, just want to add on top of that.
Yeah, and I think one great example is we talk about how having self-driving cars, and someone has a Tesla. So let's say I'm driving a Tesla and someone asks me, Scotty, would you want to use self-driving? No. Why? It's not that I don't trust the technology, it's I don't trust other drivers. I'm not saying all drivers are bad, but we are creative in doing stupid things. We can come up with the most creative, stupid things for driving. I mentioned last night, there are some companies that made war-fighting robots that can't figure out how to identify Marines, because you have a bunch of 18, 19-year-olds that will put a box over their head and run at the robot, and suddenly the robot can't identify it's a threat. We have so many ways to be creatively stupid, creatively inventive, creative in many different ways, and it really throws off, like Brad was saying, there's patterns, but there's still a lot of recognition and memory that doesn't exist at that level yet. And I think it's just one of those things where one of my early comp sci professors said, humans do creative things slowly, computers do simple things quickly. So yeah, maybe you can't play Halo by plugging me in, but I can definitely go and kick my Xbox if I want to, which I don't have one anymore, so I probably can't kick it too much. But it's one of those things where there's a lot of things that I can do that it can't do. I can't do this one thing super well, but I can go and paint poorly. I can go write Chinese calligraphy kind of okay. And then I can go type things on my phone, on a laptop. I can go and play basketball, play baseball. I can go drive a car. I can go ride a bike. I can do a lot of things because I'm flexible, and I might not be an expert. I might not be quick at doing it, but that kind of creativity, that inventiveness, that flexibility that my hardware, my body has, I think, there's definitely a lot of limitations on AI, robotics, and it's definitely fascinating to see what they might be able to do in the future, but some limitations still going on. So we do want to try to take a couple questions. So I guess if anyone,
hey, Scotty, can I jump in real quick? I just want
Oh,
to
yeah.
respond real quick. 1 minute.
Yeah.
I want to respond to Jenny, what she said, that the AI policy is a major issue that really nobody's really dealing with. No one's talking about, and especially AI global policy, right? There's nation policy and there's global policy. So I'm going to spill the beans. SMU and UAI are working on the what we believe is the first global conference on AI global policy, and part one will be held in Dallas at SMU, and part two will be held here in Mumbai. And so we're pretty excited to put that together. So I'm spilling the beans a little bit, and then Brad, I'm going to spill the beans with you a little bit. The memory problem is one of the things that we're working on big time here at UAI, and I've actually seen a little mini MVP by one of our freshman teams working on this idea. And so I'm glad you brought that up, and it reinforces one of the things that we're working on here from an academic setting.
Well, Brad, I think if you can find a couple flights to Dallas, maybe I can pick you up, show you some barbecue.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome to hear that work on the memory problem. I've seen, yep, it's a big problem, and I love that people are identifying it. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess Johnny, do you want to mention a little bit more of the AI policy now that you know about this conference going on?
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm very glad to see there's such a group of talented people already considering and start working on this stuff.
And just to chime in, I still work right now with policymakers here in Texas. So I think there is a lot of discussions right now on policy. I think you saw JD Vice President Vance over in Paris just talk about that. The EU has a very restrictive regulatory market right now when it comes to AI. So I think there's going to be a pushback from the United States in particular to that. I don't agree with how Europe is doing its regulation. I think it's overhanded. I think it's way too engrossed and controlling. It's going to stifle innovation. And then there's a couple of bills here in Texas that are coming up, and how Texas goes is how half the country goes when it comes to policy. When I was an advisor to the governor, everybody in this country would call most of the southern states, and they would just follow the same policies that we put into implementation. So I do think there is a lot of conversations right now in policy and what we need to do about it. But I think it's a pushback to what the EU is doing, which I think is not going to be conducive to innovation.
All right. And we do have a couple questions that seem to have maybe been half answered. So I guess first, Miriam, if you want to come on to the camera, if it's okay if you want not to, if not, just did that address what you asked, or do you want to jump in a little deeper, or? I guess maybe it's not convenient for her to show up on camera, but Miriam asked, for AI memory to forget certain pieces of data on purpose would imply the models are built with bias. Who is currently determining or responsible for AI policy and ethics? I feel like we kind of touched on, I guess maybe not exactly the answer, but we kind of touched on, kind of indirectly addressed that by saying there kind of at the moment isn't anyone doing that quite yet. More in the sense of they're SMU and Universal AI University, UAI, they are working on that, and I'm sure
and
there's a little bit more.
Yeah, could I maybe do 30 seconds on that? Just quick 30 seconds. So in general, an LLM, when we'd like to say it gets trained, what's happening when you're talking to ChatGPT is they take a lot of the conversations and then they retrain the model. That's not memory. That's training a model and making the model smarter and faster. And that happens. What DeepSeek is, or what Llama is they just take a copy and you could just open source it. So it's your own model. It's not getting retrained. It's just its own thing. And there's no memory there. It's just been trained on stuff. So there's no more biases or anything. It was just trained with what it was trained with. And so whoever they trained it, that's where the biases might be. And it might just be they had more data that had more biases in it versus another one. The actual memory problem is that whenever you're talking to it contextually for what you're talking about it, that LLM doesn't hold any of that memory in place ever. It's just you shove it in, and it's like a RAG system is what they call it. But and you just shove it in the model, and it spits out things on the output. So I hope that clarifies. It's training versus memory. There's a distinction there between the two, I think.
All right. And then the other question from Hiba, I think, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Hiba Faruqi, do any of our speakers have comments on any of the following in context of making AI more reliable and secure? RAGs, knowledge graphs, custom ontologies, access control, non-self-attention memory components, e.g. long context foundation models. Also, hello, Dr. Mack.
So my answer immediately goes to data storage. All right. You're going to have all this data. And again, I'm thinking from a global perspective, security begins with where the data is stored. Okay. And so I think that is going to be very, very interesting discussion. And then all the deeper aspects in terms of security, I think my other panelists are probably more qualified to speak towards, but I think at the top is where's the data going to be stored, and I think that's going to be nobody wants to store it in Europe, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree. I could quickly chime in a little bit. So starting from the data storage, there's a bunch of things we could consider in making the model more and more secure. As Brad mentioned, the pre-training of the pre-training process of the model, what kind of data is pre-trained on, like whether the data is unbiased, whether the data is reliable, it definitely decided a huge part of whether the model is reliable and secure. So starting from the data storage, there's a lot of steps we could considering, as all the following stuff you have mentioned. I think some of them are making the model more efficient, more reliable, better performance. But I would say making the model more secure and reliable, we could starting from the data and considering every step through the training and post-processing, and even set up a guardrail model at the end. So yeah, it's an end-to-end process. Basically, we could consider it in a lot of different steps.
All right. I guess we're kind of out of time for questions, but if everyone, speakers, please, if you can put your LinkedIn into the chat, that will let participants connect with you some more if they have more questions. It does seem like Dr. Mack, some people already know how to find you, maybe even exactly where your office is. So, we hope everyone enjoyed this. Sorry we can't stay on longer, but we do have another speaker coming on. His name is Joseph Wu. He's going to be talking about blockchain. And on top of that, he's going to talk about, so his team actually won Live AI last year. Part of the team was here at Duke. Part of the team was at Harvard. They won on both campuses with a split team. And then they also won at the global level. So you're not just going to hear about blockchain and Joseph's experience with blockchain and all that. You're also going to get to hear a little bit of his experience competing across the campuses and winning at the local level at both schools and at the global level, and how that led to him presenting at Miami Tech Week and what he's done since then for his startup. So thank you everyone for joining us. We will go ahead and put everyone back in the waiting room for just a couple minutes to a quick sound check with Joseph, make sure everything works properly. And then we will, we'll hop back in and do that next session. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, speakers. Everyone, just copy paste, the LinkedIn URLs real quick. And yeah, also the email addresses for Brad and Dr. Mack. So thank you, Johnny, Dr. Mack, Brad, and Ben. Dr. Mack, Hope you sleep well tonight. Thank you so much. All the UAI participants, I hope we help prove to you why Dr. Mack is a good choice for your founding vice chancellor.
All right. Thank you, Scotty, for having me. Bye, everyone.
All right, take it easy, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.